Hello, this is John with Theology Ed. I mentioned in my previous video that I'm going to try to get into a routine, and that's where I'm going right now, hopefully getting into a routine. This particular video is going to be, I don't know how to classify it. It's partly part 31, I guess, of the iPad Go 2 series, but really, if you look at the picture here on the screen, you're looking at the Kingsman film trilogy. It's going to be part 3 being released soon this year, they say. Symbol. So this is the Kingsman symbol, and this we're going to be talking a lot about the Kingsman films and the trailer for part 3, the third film, The Kingsman Man, in this video as well. So it's going to be sort of a Pet Goat 2 plus Kingsman video, and the goal is really to recap where we're at, look at what's gone on, and to explain this period of time that we were focusing on so much last year with the solstice eclipse, buck moon, and all of that, and the 1 year period that's led up to where we're at now. If you recall, last year when we were going through the series in the iPad Go 2 series, I created a timeline, and we were building the timeline. And one of the first things I added to the timeline was starting at the solstice eclipse, June 21st, 2020, the annular eclipse, followed by the buck moon. I added this purple line here, which was Ace of Swords, 1 year-ish to understand. 1 year to understand really the significance of what happened last year during this period. When people were expecting, huge catastrophes, I'd considered that possibly that, yes, you could have something big. But I was inclined back then to say, I think it's not going to be the big things. I think it's probably not going to be that, and we're going to have to see things unfold gradually. And that's why this 1 year to understand is in. You notice the color is this purple, matched her. I took it from her because of the this Ace of Swords that she represented. And you can watch part 7 of the iPad Go 2 series to see what's going on there. But and in fact, here in that video, this is part 7, iPad Go 2, explained my series last year, April 26th. So the first month I was posting last year, I discussed the 1 year development after the how long it'll take up to a year to really get what's going on after the buck moon and solstice eclipse. And so I said we have a year to watch it unfold, to see what the spread. The classroom has a tarot card spread in it, okay, that they've selected. It's not real divination going on, clearly, for a lot of reasons. But one reason, you couldn't have a tarot card being drawn randomly. This is them planning for years to put these in, to put a spread out there in that classroom to communicate something, what they're doing. And it began with the period of the June 21st to July 5th. But you see the range for these cards. Now, you can watch that video. But we have a year to watch it unfold, to see what the spread has in play for us. And then we have, what will we see? Well, no, then we have, I don't know, maybe that's just where I spoke wrong, and I'm typing it that way, actually. What will we see during this time? We're going to see chaos. We're going to see the Hegelian conflict playing out, dialectic playing out. New problems, new chaos, new reactions and fears, and so on. And solutions that come out to change things gradually. We're going to see reverse evolution. And here, the read, if we're going to look at these cards, I said, it looks like this would be the type of reading that you would get from an astrologer. The room powerfully marks June 21st to July 11th as a starting point, and changes will continue and become clearer for the following year. Expect darkness, evil, the returning backwards to a more primitive social state due to chaos in the world that was invoked by these people, and expect radical new and dark ways of life to be proposed as solutions to the new problems. Now, what I think we were looking at, and looking back now, we had this year. This year has passed, okay? And it was a period marked by major changes. We had political turmoil. We had the race riots, uprisings. So you had violence. You have the pandemic accelerating. We had China occupying or taking Hong Kong. We have the election controversy for a period of about 2 months between the election date and the certification of the Electoral College vote. Then you had the Congress, the January 6th, I don't know what you call it, protests or uh, that the media is using to hype up to sort of prepare the way to blame one group, the right wing, as extremists and future terrorists and all of this. So you had these changes happen, and we can't miss that not only did these things happen with the election being controversial, corrupt, and also with the solution to the pandemic being what this medical treatment. We call it whatever you want, but this mRNA technology being used. It looks like possibly with other ingredients. We don't know really every ingredient in there. It being now given to 70% of Americans, almost, as of this week. The 70% of adult Americans goal that Biden set has been reached. Now, interestingly, when was the buck moon last year? It was 7475, so July 4th. Biden's goal was by July 4th, 2021, to have 70% of adult Americans inoculated, okay, with this shot. He missed by a month, and they got it in August, they say. And so, is it plausible to think that what we were supposed to be watching and what becomes clear only at the end of this 1 year period, really clear at the end of this one year period, is that the transition here was to this. It was all mostly related to the pandemic and American politics, and that this is going to be the foundation for all the misery that's going to be coming between now and the end of this this 7-year period from the first Great American Eclipse to the last one. I'm going to explain. We'll take a look. But why did I start with this picture? Because this symbol we saw in previous videos of mine last year, in August 6th, for example, already last year, the December 14th eclipse. This is a symbol that represents, I think, primarily the December 14th eclipse. That was the eclipse last year, and I'm going to look into the significance of that right now. And as we look into the significance of that with the Kingsman and iPet Goat 2, we will draw things together, and we'll have I think, a more complete picture of what has been happening, and it'll help us understand what's going to continue happening. So, first, quick review. This symbol represents an eclipse. See the golden ring? That's your corona. Eclipses have coronas, right? So there's your ring, and here inside it, what looks like a K lying down for Kingsman actually is a semi-sextile aspect in astrology. The sign for a semi-sextile. And this is an eclipse on a date with a semi-sextile. So December 14th, 2020 is a date like that. Now, I'm drawing up a timeline here. You can look at it and recognize things. This is August 21st, 2017. That's the first Great American Eclipse. This is April 8th, 2024. That is the second Great American Eclipse. They intersect like this. Okay. They're total eclipses, 7 years apart, calendar years. And then if you take them and you add 1,211 days and then another 1,211 days, you go from August 21st, 2017 to December 14th. That's the midpoint. And another 1,211 days to April 8th. So you get December 14th, 2020 is the exact midpoint between these two eclipses. So this is the middle of your 7 years to the day. Before that, we had the lead up to it, everything that was needed to get you to this point. This point, of course, was, we'll talk about in a minute, but that was the two major things happened on this day. They came together. We talked about political unrest, right, and what's going on politically in America. That was the date that the Electoral College met and voted, and they picked Biden. That was later that led to the events of January 6th, 2021, when that vote was certified. Okay, because that vote was had lots of question marks around it. Okay, and that same date was the date of the first vaccines being given and vaccinations happening in the United States. Okay, this date marked both of those events at the same time. Now, to lead up to that, you have to have a period of transition. You can't just like wake up on December 13th, have nothing related to a pandemic and all these problems, and then all of a sudden just say, oh, we're going to make everybody get a shot. You can't do that. So you have this period of transition that led up to it. It started on 3/11. That was the World Health Organization declaration of the pandemic. Then the lockdowns came with it. And then we entered into this phase right here. This was this eclipse, June 21st to 2020, through the dog days of summer, basically. That was the highly symbolic eclipse that marked, remember, eclipses for the occult cover a period of time between that eclipse and the next one. So whatever the astrological significance of one eclipse is, that's going to be dominant for the period of time until the next one. So in this case, from June 21st until December 14th. And so that period, that would be the immediate lead up to the events that happen here, was ritualistically important here. Starts here. This is the one that governs the lead up. All your preparation, if you're going to have success here on December 14th, that would not happen if the quote-unquote magic you did here wasn't effective, if you're in the occult, right? Whatever the magical effect of this is necessary to get you here. That's the lead up. And so the significance of June 21st to July 5th, Buck Moon, and all that is the lead up to this. So during this time, what happened? You had your Bannon book, one of the shark attacks against Trump politically that was important in changing the direction of the election. Trump had been looking good, and all of a sudden Biden takes control, according to the media. You have political insiders against him. You have all the problems that came after that with people opposing him, and Biden all of a sudden taking the lead, even though he's one of the least popular guys ever running for president. Then you have, and I'm not a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter, incidentally. Anybody who's seen my previous videos knows that I think the whole system is rigged. Even if Trump had won, I would have thought it was rigged because in favor of him. The system is totally corrupt, and nobody gets to be president without being supported by the people who actually make the decision. And it's not you if you're an elector. Okay, as a voter. You're not the one who picks the president. No, hasn't been that way for a long, long time. Okay, so anyways, so what we have is this is the lead up. This is where you get your whole narrative that justifies what's going on here on December 14th. But this is the sort of a stripped down calendar if you want to look at it with the eclipses. You have one eclipse, another eclipse 7 year apart. These are the ones that intersect the US. Exact midpoint of the 7 year period is the December 14th date. That's the one that actually fixed everything. Once this happened, it was all she wrote, right? The story, it's over. And this was the lead up to it. This is when everything really, the ball was rolling and going hard, and they had success. So let's go back. So this is a semi-sextile eclipse here. What's interesting, this is not a semi-sextile eclipse. You have the other eclipses in here between the 7 years that are not semi-sextile eclipses. The August 21st and the April 8th eclipses are also semi-sextile eclipses. So it's like you get 3 semi-sextile eclipses with one as the absolute midpoint. We see that right here. So August 21st, Venus semi-sextile. True node, I don't know how that works, but it's a semi-sextile of some sort. December 14th, 2020, Sun, semi-sextile Pluto. April 8th, 2024, Sun, Jupiter, semi-sextile. Okay, so these are 3 semi-sextile eclipses. Again, I think that may be interesting because when you're seeing the Kingsman symbolism and the predictive programming, it's going to become very clear when I go over it again here in a minute. You see that there is it may have a reference to all 3 of these dates, meaning you have your start, this is the whole 7 year period, and your midpoint. But the midpoint is the attack, you'll see. Okay, now I wanted to tie this into IPEC Go 2 as well. Now, when we look at the IPEC Go 2 calendar, some people have said to me, John, is this, in the comments and other places, is this 2021? Are you sure? Because there was an annual eclipse in 2021 too. And yes, no, this is definitely 2020. It hasn't changed. I didn't look back and say, oh, nothing happened. But everything did happen. It all happened exactly like this says. If you look closely, what do we have? We have the Chinese yin-yang here in January last year, 2020. The first the Chinese New Year was in January. Usually it's in February. That's unusual. That doesn't match this year. China had a lockdown in January last year. There's your barbed wire for last year. Only China. Yin yang. March was when, if you look at this, a shark fin down here on the floor. I covered it with the heliofont in this image. But there's a shark fin. The first shark attack happens in March with the lockdown coming out of March. This is your Trump month, notice. Okay? And the lockdown starts. That's the World Health Organization declaration of the pandemic, 3/11. The lockdowns began at the end of the month. That later, right after it, actually, mid-month. They go out. April was the tightest lockdown month at the beginning. Remember, everybody was trapped in their houses. Everybody was scared. You had the barbed wire right around April, and he's all scraped up like he can't get out of it. He's also pinkish because of the pink moon or whatever. Then you go and you get the solstice eclipse between June and July. And we even predicted. We said, oh, because it's 2020, it looks like the barbed wire is going to go up in July. We're going to get higher lockdowns, more lockdowns in July. And sure enough, remember July 4th and all that? They were talking about, oh, Houston hospitals are going to be completely full. People are going to be dying in the streets because there's not going to be beds. And you did all that, and they tightened down the lockdowns again in July. We went through, notice, and remember last year you had the heads hitting. That was the full moon on the night that go from October to November. So these months are connected by a single full moon because October had 2 full moons. So you got the joined heads. That's not in 2021. We said last year, we were talking about this earlier in the year, we said it looks like in November that's when the censorship is going to really step up. Remember after the election? What happened? Facebook, Twitter, all these places, they start to do what? Silence political speech, political advertisements. You're not allowed to say certain things. You can't defend certain political opinions related to the election outcome and so on. And that's only accelerated with other types of coverage. And then the big attack happened, well, there was an increase of lockdown in December. And then what happened in December? The big attack. That's the hole in the head. Okay? The hole in the head right here is the December 14th event date. And people were expecting this huge crater, the crater to be like some sort of, nuclear event. I even considered it. I mean, but the thing is we didn't know. We had to have a year to really get it. And now looking back, can we understand that better? Absolutely. Because look, what is this a depiction of, this classroom? Ryler05 reminded me of Sandy Hook just the other day in a comment. And I remember back in 2012, 13, I had a channel, and all that content's long gone. Lost it. I would like to see the video again, though maybe if I saw it, I would regret looking at it again. Who knows? But I had a video, if I recall, in which I discussed Sandy Hook in relation to IPEC-02 because IPEC-02 is fresh. Everybody's looking at it new, and we were thinking, oh, man, it's all about Sandy Hook because, look, they've got a classroom with dead kids, and it looks like they've been shot. And look, this kid's shot in the head, right? And so there was this speculation that this was Sandy Hook stuff. And then you even had the house burning on the board. Maybe it was a schoolhouse or something. I don't remember everything everybody was saying. But you had this classroom. Now, this is the shot to the head. What date did Sandy Hook happen? And here it is, December 14th, 2012. So what we have is December 14th, 2020 being illustrated to us. The Sandy Hook key is the key that this shot to the head is the December 14th shot. And it lines up perfectly with what we see in the classroom. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show that this, really quick, I'm going to go to the third trailer, the trailer for the third Kingsman. And I'm going to show that even in the Kingsman trailer, that trailer, which is for a film that's going to be released this December, it was initially scheduled to be released last September 2020, but it was postponed because the theaters were closed and all that. But they released the trailer, and in the trailer we have indications that we have the June 21st eclipse in mind. And then after the June 21st eclipse, it's the next eclipse that blows up everything. Okay, that's the real hit. And that makes sense with the Kingsman symbolism with the semi-sextile eclipse. Look here. So let's look. Here's the Kingsman. Notice the release date of this trailer is June 21st, 2020. They released the trailer on the solstice eclipse date. And of course you get your bad guy in front of the light eclipse symbolism. And he says, "My flock, this will not be a war of heroes. Nations will slaughter each other while we get rich. This is going to be fun." And then another quote from another guy, "Son, the truth is that the world is ruled by corruption and greed." And so we have our eclipse symbolism. But now take a look at this. At the end, we get another eclipse. Notice that we have one eclipse here. He's eclipsing the sun. He is going to back out off. The eclipse disappears, and now he's going to throw the grenade up for the next eclipse. It's not the first eclipse. It's the second one. It's like the first eclipse throws the bomb up and causes the second eclipse to be devastating. That's your June 21st eclipse, making the December 14th one the catastrophe it is. So he's going to throw it up, and it goes up, and it eclipses. And then it causes an eclipse, and then boom. That's the explosion. The explosion happened on the eclipse after the June 21st eclipse. You have your June 21st release date. That's an eclipse date. They have clear eclipse symbolism in it to capture that they're releasing this on the eclipse date. And it's not that one. It's the one that it throws up next. That blows up and causes the devastation. And that was the December 14th date. And that is your The Kingsman trailer, which, of course, gets you your timeline. Looks like almost the timeline I have with the eclipse in the midpoint. Okay? That's the eclipse that causes devastation. Now, on that date, we've already mentioned it, I'm passing, there's your Electoral College date, when they met to vote, December 14th, 2020. There is your rollout. Okay? December 14th, the first date in the U.S. that it's given. Coincidentally, if you watched the OA predictive programming video, the previous one I just published, what do we have in that? When he's president, that's happening. The forced coercive medical therapy, okay? That, it was the OA, and that was released, that season was released on, the date I guess was 3/22 in 2019, so before the pandemic, okay? Just before the pandemic, before there was real talk of a Biden presidency or any hope of it really, they have predictive programming showing a Biden's presidency in which this is happening. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to focus now on Kingsman stuff to help understand what this 2-year or 1-year period really brought about and where this is probably going. So here we have 2 Kingsman films. The first one, The Secret Service. The second one, The Golden Circle. Very clear eclipse symbolism and language, even the golden circling. It becomes very clear in the actual films. I'm going to show some things. When I discussed the trailer of the first film last time, I pointed out that when he says mankind is the virus and I'm the cure, you also have what? The Buck Moon date up there from last year, remember? So 5/7, 5th of July 2020. They selected that moment to put in the trailer. That's always, when they like to choose, they cherry pick what they want from the film to put in the trailer to communicate messages that may not be as clear in the film. So now let's look at the film. And I'm going to focus on things that I didn't focus on last time I discussed The Kingsman, and we'll fill in details. First, here, Eggsy's dad died, who was a Kingsman. He didn't know he was a Kingsman, but his dad was a Kingsman. He died in the line of duty. And Harry shows up at the house to give to his wife, and turns out then to Eggsy this medal, which has the Kingsman logo, of course. And when he goes over with this logo, this little medal, which is the Kingsman logo, he finds Eggsy looking at a snow globe in a very clearly Christmassy, a room decorated in a clearly Christmassy fashion, as they got their Christmas decorations, their tree, their snowmen or whatever, all that. Okay, we are in December. We're in a snowy environment, and he's going to be giving this medal to him. Attention is being drawn to the snow. He's focusing on this. He looks at it. He's going to put it aside. You're going to see the sequence right after this. He gives the medal to the young Eggsy, and it pans over directly to the snow globe again, looking in it, and then it zooms into it. Okay. What you have is this symbol is going to be related to the snow scenes. And that is not coincidental. In IPECO 2, what is the environment of the whole thing? Snowy winter. It's in the snow. I guess they were talking about the dark winter, right? They have a lot of snow falling. The snow is symbolic. It's not just talking about winter, literally. It's talking about what I believe is probably and I'll explain, it's just in the spike protein. But let's look. So he goes in, and then we get the Kingsman, the Secret Service, being made out of the snowflakes and the snowy terrain and the mountains. Okay, now look at IPECO 2. Here again, you have your snowy scenery, and you get snowflakes on the wall. Why are the snowflakes on the wall in the classroom? What is being communicated there? What's the point of putting them on the classroom? You already have snow everywhere. And we know that it's not just a decoration. They didn't put all this thought into everything else on the walls, and they're like, oh, and it's a winter scene, so let's put snowflakes on the wall because that's what kids would have in their school. No, it's always communicating something. If we look closely, snowflakes, and we've talked a little about this in previous videos, I believe, but this imagery helps. Notice that they all have hexagrams in them. They're made of hexagrams. And you get your 666 in here. The snowflake is a representation for them when it's designed this way with your hexagrams of the 666 imagery. Look closely. You've got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you got 6. Okay, they have a 6, 6, 6. You're getting and the hexagram itself has 666 symbolism and a way of referencing to this Mark of the Beast numerology stuff. All right. So when they're looking at this, also the snowflake is interesting because it's spiky. I mean, it's not hard to see, right? And it's the environment of IPECO 2. When the goat is in the sticking his head out of his little shed or whatever, and he's got the Mark of the Beast barcode on his forehead, 666, and snow is falling all around him and on him and all of that. Okay, it's the environment in which everything unfolds in IPECO 2, and as far as I can tell, what they're having in mind here is this transition. What happens on this date is going to cause a storm of spike proteins, and they're thinking of this, I think, in terms of the Mark of the Beast. Okay, not that this is the literal Mark of the Beast. Somebody got vaccinated. Are they all doomed to hell necessarily? No. People can repent of sins. They can reevaluate things. They can, and if someone repents, they're saved, right? Scripture talks about if you get the Mark of the Beast and worship the beast, it's a tour. It's not just a physical thing is going to send somebody to hell. It's the physical thing. It's not that. It's the adoration of the beast. It's this allegiance to the beast, love of the beast, and these sorts of things. But the point being, though, it's going to they're thinking of this. The elites who prepared all of this, they're thinking of this. What comes on this date and brings this snowstorm is like injecting people with the mark. Okay, and when they have it, without it, you can't buy or sell. That's the goal, just like the mark. And with it, you can. It also starts when? At the midpoint between, in the 7-year period. This is that they're imitating. Okay, at the midpoint. Why did it happen right then? It's the midpoint of the 7 years that's going to lead to the destruction of the United States completely. And so what you have is the snowstorm representing, I believe, their Mark of the Beast goal in their mind. What's the Mark of the Beast? And giving it to people, and without which you can't buy or sell. And that's going to serve as a foundation for a lot of the turmoil that's going to happen between December 14th, 2020 and April 8th, 2024. That next eclipse. So let's continue in the film. So what is the story? They've got an enemy who experiments with biological weaponry, including these bath salts in Uganda, which made people go mad and crazy and violent, they say in the film, right? In real life, you had this Rudy Eugene guy. That's his name, Rudy Eugene, um, who was the zombie attacker who, was, I guess, running around naked and chewed off somebody's face while he was in some sort of zombie-like state. Okay, that guy was was presumably under bath salt influence of bath salts, these synthetic cathinones or whatever. Don't even know if I pronounced that right. Okay, but the idea is you had this mercenary group involved in biological weaponry using chemical agents to make people violent against one another for genocidal purposes. Then, so they put in the water supply of a guerrilla army base, and then you get rage, cannibalism, multiple fatalities. And then they talked about Chechnya. The militia group was behind Chechnya, where insurgents turned on one another, and that one was done without any trace of chemicals, but it was clearly the work of the mercenaries, they say. And now they are getting some evidence that the group is perhaps involved in some being a climate change doomsday, or basically the group is going to be trying to accomplish something, kidnapping this guy in order to save the world from climate change and humans destroying the planet and making it uninhabitable. Okay, and that's the way it's going to go. So it turns out that Valentine is the bad guy. He's the villain. Okay, and he's a billionaire, and he talks about the need for depopulation. And he says, when you get a virus, you get a fever. That's the body raising its core temperature to kill the virus. Planet Earth works the same way. Global warming is the fever. Mankind is the virus. We're making our planet sick. A cold is our only hope. If we don't reduce our population ourselves, there's only one of two ways this can go. The host kills the virus, or the virus kills the host. Either way, the result is the same. And that's basically his speech to convince people, world leaders, powerful people, to get on board with the program and kill people, to get behind the depopulation agenda. And so the film is a depopulation film, a film about a villain who wants depopulation to save the planet. And Valentine, to accomplish this, goes out and he's going to give people all of these he's going to announce that every man, woman, and child can claim a free SIM card from him and get free internet for life, free phone service, all this for life, and use his communications network for free. And, of course, everybody lines up to go get it because, who doesn't want free stuff? Okay? And so they go. Let's see. Along the way, there's quite a bit of nano technology going on, right? So, for example, Valentine meets with Harry, and he puts a nano tracker gel in Harry's wine to know where he's going for the next 24 hours. So Harry, notice, has a nano tracker gel given to him. Harry then, when he goes to, he ends up in Kentucky. Let's see. Okay. He goes to Kentucky with this church, into a church. And this scene is very famous. I'll get to that in a second. Actually, I don't want to get make this more confusing than it could be. It shouldn't be. So I'm going to take a step back. He releases these chips. And what he's going to do is he's going to use the chips to send a signal. And the signal is going in the phone. And the phone is going to emit a signal that he controls because he has the chip in there that causes people to become very, very violent without inhibitions. Okay? And so Harry, who he gave this nano chip to, or nano gel to, what was it, a chip or a gel? Doesn't matter. Nano tracker gel. Okay? Harry goes, and he ends up in Kentucky. Now, in Kentucky, he goes in this church with the "America is Doomed" sign out front, and he listens to the preacher preaching, and the preacher is you know, portrayed as a bigoted, basically a hate criminal. Okay, terrible person. And Harry gets up to leave the church because he doesn't want to be there anymore. He's not interested. And as he gets up to leave, he's like, "Where are you going?" And he says, "Well, I'm leaving." And he had a little spiel about what he said, but he says, "I'm leaving." And at that same time, Valentine turns up the signal in the room. So everybody who got their free SIM cards, all these people, starts to go crazy, including Harry, interestingly, who we have no evidence that he actually had the SIM card. And he takes the gun and he shoots her, and then he goes and he kills everybody. Everybody's trying to kill each other, actually, and Harry's the lone survivor. He killed a lot of them. A lot of them also killed each other. People just went nuts, and they were, and so the entire church is killed off. So here's an attack on Christianity. That's being portrayed. Christians as bad guys, Christians as extremists, Christians with anti-human, anti-freedom, everything bad. They're bad in every way. Basically, they're portrayed as horrible people. They get killed off, and this is also representing the America's doom. But he goes through there, and when he comes out, he says, "What did you do? I wanted to kill those people. I had no control." And the explanation is, it is a neurological wave that triggers the centers of aggression and switches off inhibitors. What was somehow given to these people, in this case the chips, whatever it is something that affects the mind and makes them more disposed to violence. Okay? Perhaps in conjunction with some technology that is going to have to interact with it. For example, imagine that somebody was injected with something like, with graphene. Okay? And let's say the graphene was designed in such a way where it can function as an antenna, and there was some other technology introduced into society along the streets and everywhere that can emit a new signal. And maybe it interacts with the antenna and allows you to target people, for example. Or, I'm not saying that's what's going on, but that's one type of approach it could be. Or maybe you could have something like this nanogel injected into somebody. I'm talking like you had with Harry. He had some gel, not at the time, and that gel was only supposed to be a tracker. But maybe you'd have something that just affects the mind over time, causes anxiety, worries. I mean, imagine if I was given something against my will. I thought it was supposed to make me healthy, and I started to get really sick, and I started to have neurological problems and cardiovascular problems, and I see my health deteriorating, and I see that nobody is taking my concerns seriously, and they write it off as, unimportant, irrelevant, and just anxiety. I'm going to be losing my mind over time. I'll be tempted to. And at some point, it's easy to imagine that this can generate some sort of a response of frustration and protests, possibly. There's a number of things, a number of ways this could go. But either way, what happened on December 14th, 2020, seems to be like the SIM card being given out that's going to lead to this sort of disturbance. Now, discontent, the violence. What's interesting, in the scene, Valentine shoots Harry. Harry dies in the first film. At least that's what everybody thinks. He dies. In the second film, we get some details about how Harry survived. Another intelligence agency, the Statesman from Kentucky, shows up in a helicopter and does what? We developed our alpha gel technology for our own agents. They put it on his head, and the alpha gel, these nanites, go into his brain or into the head and heal him. And then, what's interesting, after this, what happens with Harry? When he recovers, there's side effects, and he's living with all these butterflies all around. He thinks he's, I forgot the name of the scientist, but he thinks he's not an agent, but that he's, the scientist who studies butterflies. And I forgot the name. Sorry. And the butterflies mess with his head throughout the rest of the film. When he finally comes to his senses and realizes he's an agent, he still has butterflies distracting him in the middle of his work. What's very interesting about this, notice that when he disappeared in the scene, he dies right after he killed off the church. When he went crazy, doing things that were not under his control. Harry is the only guy in the film who was given the nano gel earlier. He's given a nano tracker gel. Harry goes nuts, under mind control. Looks like he dies. Turns out he didn't die because what he was under, he had some other alpha gel nanite technology put in. It was called nanites later in the part 2. And then he's seeing butterflies. What we're seeing is that the people who do this activity are in some way mind controlled, perhaps with the influence of some sort of substance injected into them. Now, so what we have, I think, for anybody who's wondering about the butterfly symbolism, you have this Vigilant Citizen site, very interesting site. Origins and techniques of Monarch mind control. Monarch programming is a method of mind control used by numerous organizations for covert purposes. It is a continuation of Project MKUltra, a mind control program developed by the CIA. You can read that. Okay, what you have, here, the creation of a mind-controlled slave who can be triggered at any time to perform any action required by the handler. While mass media ignores this issue, over 2 million Americans have gone through the horrors of this program, and so on. Okay, this is the Monarch program. So when you see the symbolism in here, Harry looks like a mind-controlled person who carries out the atrocities against his own will that that his handlers wanted him to carry out. And he does it when they wanted him to, when they turn up the volume on the, increase the frequency. And they disable the inhibitors and trigger the centers of aggression in him. And I can't help but think that this, at least in some symbolic and maybe more literal way, the fact that Harry is the guy who gets the nanotrat gel, and then afterwards we get explicit explanation of why he didn't die, was because of nanites in him. That somehow this is all related to the mind control element of the Kingsman show, movies. Okay, so what you have is a mind control atrocity, perhaps made possible by some sort of technology, maybe nanotechnology of some sort in the perpetrators of the violence under mind control. All right, so, but long story short, the violence is somehow related to perhaps the real frequencies being emitted and in conjunction with something in the person. Now, continuing, so America is doomed. This is what dooms America. Okay, why is America doomed in the Kingsman? America is doomed because of this attack, this combination attack that Harry exemplifies. Okay, and later in the film, when he actually tries to get it going globally, the whole world seems to go nuts. And he describes it in these words. You can go ahead and pause this, but basically, it's a genocidal act, but we're not the bad guys. We're the good guys, like Noah, okay? And it's blasphemous, but the idea is that it's a depopulation effort, and they view this as a potentially, this is going to be millions and millions of dead, maybe billions of dead, the way the film is portraying it. Now, this is taking longer than I thought. I'm going to go ahead, because I am just about to go to the second film to continue to put pieces together. Should I keep going or should I stop? I'm going to stop and then I'll make part 2. So this is part 31 of IPEC 02 series and part 1 of the reevaluation of the Kingsman together. And we're going to do the rest of it in the next video, which hopefully should be done soon too, because I already have everything in place. All right, like, subscribe. Hey, share these, because if you don't share these videos, I think due to algorithms, the YouTube algorithms, they're not being recommended like they were in the past. Also, probably because of me producing less videos more recently. So sharing, liking, commenting, these sorts of things help the algos and also help videos get attention if you think they're worth it. All right, thanks a lot. Take care.